Hello and welcome to today's Warhammer Week video, and today we're looking at Index Imperium 2, which contains the full rules for using the Astra Militarum or Imperial Guard, the Adeptus Mechanicus, Imperial Knights, Imperial Agents and Talons of the Emperor. This book is 167 pages long, so it's shorter than yesterday's Space Marine one, but I feel like this is the better of the two, with more balanced and more choice as you pick your armies. From an initial reading of this book, it's more based around being for a book that you can select forces from, especially with the new Battleforge requirements for match play. Adeptus Custodes, Sisters of Silence, Imperial Assassins, etc. are almost impossible to take now on their own due to needing a HQ in most of the slots. So, as you open the book, the first section you get to after the artwork, after all the data sheets, is the Astra Militarum. Similar to the Space Marine book from yesterday, you get a brief history of the Imperial Guard as well as the individual forces within. And then you get a breakdown of different regiments and what to expect. So you get battle groups, infantry, armoured regiments, recon regiments, artillery regiments, and what would be seen in those usual forces. Then we get the army-wide special rule, and for this one it's the voice of command with orders. Orders now seem very solid, with rapid fire 2 for first round fire, second round fire, which means you get 4 shots per guy at rapid fire range. Bring it down is solid, but rather than affecting heavy models, it just lets you reroll wounds of 1. Basically, all the orders now are valid no matter what, so you won't just be spamming first round fire, second round fire. A new and interesting order is fixed bayonets. This order allows you to do an extra outer phase attack as if you're in the fighting phase, which can be very strong with certain units. Similar before, we get the war gear section telling you if the list tells you they can take a heavy weapon, what they can take, etc. On the whole, I'd say company commanders, veterans, etc. have gotten a lot weaker in terms of power, just due to the fact that there's no option for carapace armour anymore, so they stuck to their 5+ armour save. Leman Russes and tank commanders, etc. Only ignore the penalty for shoot heavy weapons on their turrets. So any heavy bolters they've got, etc., still suffer the penalty. After the basic Astra Militarum, and once you pass all the Bane variants, you get the special characters like before. So you get the Cadian shock troops with Creed, Krell, etc. So basically everyone you've gotten used to over the years. And Knight Commander Pask is still included. Then you're onto the Catachan Jungle Fighters, where you get Ironhand Strachan and Harker. No Sly Marbo anymore though, as you saw in the previous codex. Then we're on to the Officio Prefectus. This is your Commissars and Yarrick. Commissars in this edition, I'd say, are a very powerful force multiplier, because it basically stops. In the moral phase now, you can only lose 1 model for every commissar. So you can only lose 1 model due to a failed moral test. So when it comes to guard, they won't, for example, lose 6 extra guys because you rolled very high after suffering some serious losses. You also get to pick which model gets removed, and your opponent never gets to choose anymore. And so basically it's all the good things of last edition with slight tweaks for this edition, with no downsides. The Militarum Tempestus are their own mini decks, like before. They don't have their own orders, however. they only get to use the basic Imperial Guard ones. The Tempest of Prime, like many other characters, is now out of his retinue, and in turn has had some beefed up stats with extra wounds, attacks, etc. Tempestus Scions are now basic troops, so you can either run a Militarum Tempestus force, or you could use Tempestus Scions in a basic Astra Militarum list to just fill it out. The Militarum Auxilia are a separate detachment again, but you can only take them to support forces because they're all elites, and that includes Nork Dedog. The Aeronauta Imperialis is also its own section here, where you have the Officer Fleet and Valkyries, but that's it. There's no more Vendettas in this edition. However, I do believe they are going to be in the Forge World Astra Militarum Index. The Mechanicus is very similar to the Guard in the way that you get to pick between the different forces now, with the Adeptus Mechanicus Magos being able to actually benefit Skitarii due to the keyword system, as they all have the Forge World keyword. So long as you take them from the same Forge World or force, they all get the bonuses. Canticles of the Omnissiah are still a thing, and you get everything from rerolling failed moral tests, being able to inflict mortal wounds on squads locked in close combat with you, to rerolling ones shooting and always counting in cover. Canticles of the Omnissiah, you get to pick which one you want each turn, but you can only use each one once per game. However, you can roll the dice, and whatever value you get, you can use, even if it was one that was previously done. So say you use Chant of the Remorseless Fist, which lets you reroll any failed rolls of 1 for affected units in the fight phase, and you're still stuck in combat and you want it again, you roll a dice. If you get another 3, you can use it 2 turns in a row. The Dominus engine seers, they're all solid choices now. Cataphron breaches and destroyers benefit from they have their own special rule called Heavy Battle Servitor, which means they can only advance d3 inches, but they ignore penalties for shooting with heavy weapons, so they're always hitting on 4s, which is good. Castellan robots and cybernetic data smiths are their own separate units now. So you could take a chunk of Castellans with only 1 or 2 data smiths if you wanted to. Skitarii are another solid force, similar to the other complementary forces. You can't take them on their own anymore because they lack a HQ. However, you could just take a Magos Dominus, for example, and that would be a force. The Iron Strider Ballistari, I'd say, and Dragoons are really good because they give your opponents negative modifiers when it comes to shooting at them, and they also have weapons that you can fire after advancing at a -2 penalty. Then you're on to the Imperial Knights. Imperial Knights are an exception to the can't take them on their own because there is a Lord of War detachment. Imperial Knights are incredibly beefy now, with toughness 8 and 24 wounds apiece. But they did lose Gerontius the Green Knight as their special character. He no longer exists, whether he'll be released as his own force, well, his own data slate in the future is yet to be seen. Ion shields are now just a flat 5+ invulnerable save, as opposed to a 4+ invulnerable save on 1 armor facing, because armor facing doesn't exist anymore. And all the knights other than Gerontius still exist. The Adeptus Ministorum are all the priest units from the Sisters of Battle from previous editions. So you have Uriah, Jacobus, Ministorum Priests, Crusaders, Deathstrike Assassins, etc. They have a cool special rule called Acts of Faith, and Acts of Faith allows you to take, at the start of the turn, you roll a dice on a 2+, one unit with this rule can do a certain out of phase action, so they could move as if it were the movement phase, shoot, fight, or you can recover D3 lost wounds, or you can return a single slain model to a unit with 1 wound remaining. This is an exceptionally powerful rule, as it lets you essentially have a second phase of your choice with certain units, or keep them in the fight for longer. However, you can only return single models to unit. You can't bring a unit back once it's dead. This can only be done once per turn, however, for 1 unit only. Once you get to the Adeptus Sororitas, though, the Sisters of Battle, they also have Acts of Faith, but they also have certain units such as Celestine or Imagifiers that allow you to take additional acts of faith on certain values. Celestine just lets you have an additional one flat out, whereas Imagifiers let you have it on a 4+ rather than a 2+. And it can only be within 6 inches. But Imagifiers don't have a restriction other than being elites. Sisters of Battle are one of the few examples in this book of a force that's solely contained. You can take an entire force from just them. But I'd say across the board they're a lot stronger now, with a general increase to power, and just because infantry is more useful in this edition. Psykers are their own force now, and they get their own special discipline to choose from. However, these are specifically designed for supporting forces, primarily Astra Militarum. There's nothing saying you can't take them with the Inquisition. Sisters of Silence are a supporting force, with them all being elites or dedicated transports you can choose from. I do feel like there could have been a HQ added here, even if it was just an upgraded sergeant a la the Primaris Lieutenant seen in the Primaris Space Marines. Versus Psykers, they're still an absolute pain to deal with, as they now have Psychic Abomination. Psychic Abomination works very similar to last edition, where they can't be affected by psychic powers at all. But rather than just flat out denying a power from being cast now, they just add a stackable -1 up to 4 to psychic tests and deny the witch. However, it is specifically said against enemy psykers now. So now you can run your own psykers with them with no penalty, which I'm not sure how I feel about that one. In one case I can see it as good because it lets you take the force you want, but at the same time it was that trade-off. You had a very good anti-psyker unit for the cost of your own psykers, well, sucking. And it also reflected the fluff a bit more, where they can't turn it off, they are just nulls and affect enemy psykers full stop. Assassins are still incredibly powerful individual models, with very little actually having changed across the board for them. They've generally gained a wound, especially the Eversort Assassin, which is now up to 6 wounds, and they're still very strong, powerful force multipliers. You take them now to complement your force, as seen in previous editions, and you just use them to fill in the gaps as needed. Then we're on to the Inquisition. The Inquisition is its own mini-dex, but is, I'd say, more designed again to support one seen here or a Space Marine force. Inquisitors still get bonuses for fighting certain factions, whereas Malleus, which gets a bonus for fighting Chaos or Demons, Hereticus, which gives you a bonus for fighting Chaos or Psykers, and then Xenos, which gives you a bonus for fighting anyone without the Chaos, Imperium or Unaligned keywords. But there's also a unique one now, which is Specialist, who gains a bonus for fighting anyone with the character keywords. You could take a specific character killing Inquisitor if you wanted to. They also have their own psychic discipline to choose from. And also a selection of special characters, with none of them, I'd say, really having been removed from before. Acolytes in this edition are a lot weaker. I'm going to put it flat out there now. They're nowhere near as customizable, so you can't keep them. So you don't get really the choice between having souped up Imperial Guardsmen right up to I'm a Space Marine in all but name. They are essentially now just Imperial Guard that have a special rule for they have a special rule to make themselves as meat shields for Inquisitors, which if an Inquisitor suffers a wound within 3 inches on a 2+, a model from this unit suffers a mortal wound and the Inquisitor doesn't suffer the wound anymore. Jokero weaponsmiths, I'd say, are also weaker on the whole. So really across the board, the Inquisition has gotten a nerf, I'd say. Custodes are exceptionally powerful individual models now. They're basically a squad of mini characters with strength, toughness 5, 3 wounds, 3 attacks and 4 attacks on the shield captain. The Guardian Spear is a solid shooting and attacking weapon, so is the Sentinel Blade, with pros and cons to both of them. However, similar to the Sisters of Silence, I feel like they missed the trick with leaving out a Lieutenant, well, a HQ, similar to a Primaris Lieutenant, where, say, a Shield Captain is taken out of a unit and he just gets a increase of 1 to, say, his wounds, attacks, etc., or up to 5 even, just so he's kind of in line with Primaris Lieutenant, and you could, say, bring the Custodian Guard minimum size down to 4 to compensate. But they are a solid force and will definitely work well in any situation. Then, similar to the Space Marine force, we just have fortifications at the back telling you what's in it. Then a detachment roster telling you how to build the force, as well as printable sheets and points at the back. Personally, I'd say this is more bang for your buck with money versus the Space Marine one. Whereas the Space Marine one, you get all the Space Marine codexes, and that's really it. In this one, you get all the individual Imperial units other than Space Marines, and it lets you have more choice building your force. So if you wanted to, say, have an Imperial Guard army supported by Skitarii, led by Saint Celestine from the Gathering Storm, you can do that. And it's just that flexible force choice you get more here. But they're the same price, so I'm not sure how I feel about this being smaller. But for £15, it's a lot cheaper than any other Games Workshop codex they've ever released other than for Age of Sigmar. So that wraps it up for this video. Tomorrow's video is going to be a model review and thoughts on the Dark Imperium box set. I will see you then.